At this time of the year, we'll still recruit a kid. Actually, we'll recruit a kid out of our radius that we might not be able to see in person at any time. Now we're going to have to, utilize some other resources. I'm going to have calls and with his travel coach, with his high school coach. I'm going to want to get my hands on both video from live game and bullpens and BP. I want to try to use every single resource I can to identify him as a prospect if I can't do it in person. Now, if it's earlier, in that kid's senior year, maybe the summer before the fall, and he's out of our radius, that's when we will invite those kids to our prospect camp. Now, at this time of the year for us, we don't have any more prospect camps for uncommitted seniors. But yeah, if they're out of our normal recruiting range, that does not make them unrecruitable for us. We just have to go about it in a different way.
Coach, how about for you guys? Do you recommend that kids, are you mostly trying to recruit kids around you? I mean, maybe scholarships are a little bit different for in-state, out-of-state kids. Does it matter? Would you recommend to a player to just reach out to schools around him, or kind of anywhere geographically, as long as, like Coach Maz said, that the boxes that are important to them are being checked?
No, I think, to a couple of Coach Maz's points, I mean, one, make sure it's somewhere you'd be willing to go. I mean, don't email us and then we do like what we see, and then, it's, well, Paris is a long way away. Well, Paris didn't move between the time you initiated this conversation. We haven't gone anywhere. I think reach out, though. If for us, it's great, right? A lot of guys want to get south. And so, there are guys from up north that reach out. And we've had guys from Washington State to Puerto Rico to the DR. We don't have a ton of internationals, but, we might have one or two a year. But, we got a couple guys from Kansas right now. We are surrounding states. Obviously, in Texas, a lot of the places you can throw a rock and hit a guy that can play some baseball. I mean, just the population of the state. But sometimes it's better for us to go out of state, right? Because we don't have to compete against all the guys we're having to compete against for the same kid in Texas when we can go out and get one from a northern state. And so, not very, very rarely do we take a guy just. There's a handful of guys in the world that if they called me and said, hey, this guy can play for you, they know me well enough and they know what our program's about and our style. There's a handful that I would say, okay, if I trust you, but very rarely do we just take a guy off video, whatever it may be. But that may spur the initial conversation, right? And whether, I'll hop in a car and drive 12 hours. That's not, that's a hop, skip, and a jump for me as long as we've been doing this. Or, hey, if you got a chance to get down this way and you want to come work out for us, we'll work you out, man. And so, I think there's definitely the opportunity. We've found a lot of guys that way, and so I would say as long as you're willing to go somewhere, then feel free to reach out to those schools. But make sure, like Coach Maz and those guys have mentioned, that it's somewhere that you're willing to go if they do want to move forward and you don't waste everybody's time. I think that there's a lot of opportunities outside. And for me, like a lot of times with our guys that are potential Pro Bowl guys, we've been fortunate enough the last 2 years to have back-to-back draft picks and got a couple guys that are potentially, draft picks in this year's draft. For me, a guy that's been up in a different state all his life, the same area guy, if it's been around forever, has seen him for, years and years. He has a preconceived notion that guy might need a fresh set of eyes on him from a new scout, might be the difference maker in him having an opportunity to get drafted, and so all of those things come into play. But I would say, be willing to venture out. And it's 2 to 4 years of your life, right? You can always go back home, but go experience something different if you're willing to.
Sure, everybody on this call has experienced that. I know I have, where I've recruited a guy, and you're pretty deep with him, and then eventually he kind of comes to the conclusion late that, boy, I really don't want to go that far away from home. So really good point that I'm glad you brought up. Coach Appel, I'm going to ask you a slightly different question along these lines. If you get an offer at this time of year as a 2024, how quickly do you need to accept that offer? Whereas if you get offered, I think earlier in your high school career, a lot of guys will say, we've all experienced this as well, high school guys saying, I'm going to wait and just see what other options come up, which I think is fair. But at this time of year, where things are moving pretty quickly because the timeline is crunched, how quickly do guys need to make decisions, in your opinion, if they do get an offer? And again, assuming that it's a school, there's things about it they like. But if you like that offer, do you need to jump on it pretty quickly, or do you have time to wait, or what happens if you decide to wait? What's that like for a kid?
Yeah, I think, and I was actually getting ready to respond in a similar way. Listen, I think there's two things that kids need to understand in today's world is that you can never get back time and money. And if you waste time and money, oh, it's going to jeopardize things. And as far as the offers go, it's like playing blackjack right now. I think if you get an offer and it feels good and everything about it is what you're looking for, I personally think, why not make that move and commit? Why procrastinate and say, well, I just want to keep everything open and wait till July. I think some of us who operate with a pool of money, that money, if we go out and find another kid that's very similar and they want to jump at it, we're going to go out and take that kid. And, that next conversation is going to be, hey, Johnny, hey, because you waited, we don't have this money for you anymore. I think that time is very valuable. And I think that if a kid has an opportunity to go play at the next level and they are a 24 grad, if it feels good and everything about it is right, I think they should make that move and commit.